Welcome to the T.A.C Show of our special guest today, Jen Makowsky. Now, Jen, you got your start out as a Hollywood actress, right? What's the story behind that?
Well, I went out to LA, to Hollywood in 1998, and that was to be the third major city I moved to after living in Ithaca, growing up in the Ithaca area, Lansing, for my childhood. I graduated and went to TC3 for a couple of years, got my associate's degree, went to SUNY New Paltz for my theater degree, did 2 years there, uh, and did theater and learned a lot about acting and stagecraft and all that fun stuff. Moved to New York City, lived there for about little over 3 years, and then Chicago, a little over 7 years, and then out to LA. So I did a lot of theater first in New York and Chicago. And then, so it was nice to have that experience under my belt before I headed out to LA in 1998. And then I started getting into, like you said, it was more the Hollywood experience, doing commercial auditions and some TV auditions and a few film auditions too. Yeah. So what did you want to know? There it is. That's how I
Well,
got there.
what got you into theater in the first place? Like, what started this journey of acting? Like, what started it all?
As a kid growing up, I think my biggest influence was probably Carol Burnett, the comedian, and watching her show. Are you familiar with that,
Oh
Thomas?
yeah,
Yeah. Some funny stuff. Really just love how she interacts with the audience. At the beginning of her shows, she'd always take questions, ask for the lights to be turned up, and she'd really have a nice rapport with the audience before the show started. That inspired me to connect with people more. And I just saw through her, and she made me feel like she saw me and everybody else in the audience, really taking in the humanity and feeling and putting out her humanity and helping everybody to feel good. That was really inspiring to me as a kid, and I wanted to do that too, basically.
yeah. She was one of the big leaders, I believe, in woman in comedy back then. I don't believe there was many successful ones back then, were there? Yeah.
No, you're right. There was, Lucille Ball and Carol Burnett, and very few in the early days. But yeah, they really made their names and paved the way for women to follow after them, which was great.
But, so what's the story behind your first audition ever? We know you're like what got you into it, but what's the story behind your first ever real like role?
That's a good question. I don't know what I would expect. Well, let's see. When I got a small part on Criminal Minds when I was in LA, and I think that was probably one of the first big roles that I did. And the audition there was for the director, Timothy Hutton, I think.
Sounds very familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Animal House and
Oh yeah, the actor. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I believe I have his name right. Wait, no, I think so. Oh, gee, I'm a little embarrassed now. But anyway, um, it was pretty wild because I was a little starstruck walking into the audition. It's like, okay, and it was a very emotional audition because I was playing one of the victims, of course, to the unsub, as they say, um, and I had to look really sad and had to show terror, and that's kind of hard to do when you're under pressure and all that, but you get past it. And, I did okay, obviously. um, I don't know what else to say. But I prepared for it, you know, put myself in the place of somebody who was being held victim by a kidnapper and someone who was threatening to kill me, and got the part eventually. That was the first big one. Other silly auditions. There was one audition, I was auditioning for another show, and that the challenge was to, you know, be sexy. And while you're under pressure and somebody's just looking, one person is looking at you in the audition space, and you're trying to, you know, make yourself look relaxed and sexy, and it was rather comical. It turned out to be rather comical because I couldn't like settle myself down and just be sexy. It was more of a, like I said, more of a comedy situation. So there's been, you know, success and not so much success in auditioning. And learning about oneself as you continue forward.
What's shooting like a film on TV like compared to doing theater? Like what's the main difference?
The main difference is that in theater, you have to put yourself through the full gamut of the work, of the emotions, every single night. And with film, you only have to do a little piece of it at a time, which is helpful to a certain degree. To a certain degree, it's also more difficult because you don't have that clean flow line, logical storytelling in film as you do with theater every night. You find that beginning, middle, and end, and it all flows very nicely in theater every night. But with film, it's all chopped up. To that also degree, you get a lot of shots with your scene in film, you know, and it's up to the editor and the director to pick what they think is your best take, so you can find perfection more easily in film than you can quickly in theater, or your best performance. That's what I consider, you know, the perfection, your best performance, perfection in quotes.
Yeah. So like what's your biggest film role? Like what's the biggest film role you ever auditioned for and got in?
Let's see. Honestly, it's the biggest film role was never very big as far as known films, but it was an amazing and fun student film that I did for a graduate student at USC. And I got to play a ghost who haunted a home. And yeah, it was really fun. I got to work with a stunt coordinator from Spider-Man. I think it was the original Spider-Man, and worked with a special you jump forward and you have a rope attached to you around your middle, so you're trying to move forward, but it pulls you back suddenly. You know, you see the effect in horror films as somebody leans forward and they get sucked back by something, or something is pushed into them and pushing them back into a wall or something. I got to do that. That was really fun.
That does sound pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, did you ever have to
Oh.
deal with any like sexism at all, like while working in Hollywood? Like, did you ever have to deal with any of that, like challenges as a woman?
Yeah, I'd say that you know, during that sexy audition, you know, the audition where you're trying to be sexy was particularly, I mean, it's funny now when I think about it, but at the time it was very traumatic. And I guess you could tell by the way I'm holding my hands here, it made me feel very vulnerable, and yeah, a little too exposed at that, in those moments. I've also done auditions where I'm trying to have a vulnerable moment and people are sitting there and just eating pizza, which is not fun, you know. It just seems like people aren't really listening to you. Yeah, yeah. Oh, and I forgot, I was in a film, actually my biggest role I guess would actually be Slow Burn. I totally forgot I did it. I was in it as the grandmother of Minnie Driver's character, and I'm in the opening scene, and I get to die on camera, which was great fun.
Yep.
On that, right face first into a sand dune.
Whoa. Oh, be living in Hollywood, the land of celebrities. Like, what's the most famous big name actor you've ever got to meet, like while working on these various productions?
I guess one of the biggest, well, a couple of big names. I got to meet Josh Brolin and James Spader when I was doing Slow Burn and Minnie Driver, and those are pretty big names. I was very happy to work with them.
Do you have any like cool stories or any cool
Very kind.
interactions or
Well, Josh Brolin would bring his didgeridoo onto the set and into the makeup trailer. That was fun. And play that, the long, slow sounds while you're getting your makeup done. It's pretty funny.
is it like a horn or what exactly is it?
It's a long hollowed out stick, and it has holes in it that you can, you know, make a different notes with it. And you basically, I think you just buzz your lips and blow through the long stick, and it just makes a nice, amazing low sound. Yeah, it's Australian.
I've never heard of it, but it does sound pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's the indigenous people of Australia.
Yeah. So, like, what commercials did you do? Like, I know a lot of actors and actresses get their start out in commercials, but what commercials did you do back then?
I did a Visa commercial first, which was really fun. It was a thrill for me because it was the first national commercial that I got, and that was exciting. And then I did a Taco Bell commercial. I got to play a cop, and then oh gee, a Lexus commercial where I played an English woman on safari, and it was that one was particularly funny because I was in a commercial with other people who were actually from the UK, and they had fabulous English accents, and for some reason they asked me to do the voiceover in an English accent. It was perplexing to me, but I was happy to do it for the little bit of extra money. Those are the main commercials I've done. Yeah.
Did you ever have to deal with any instance where like family members or friends was like, "Hey, I recognize that woman. I know that person. Wait a second." Like after do you have any stories about that or not?
Yeah, hearing my voice. Also a Walmart commercial. That was the one where I in various scenes, I just simply said the word beautiful in various times, and had friends who weren't watching the TV, but they heard my voice saying beautiful, and like hit a memory section in their brain, turned and looked, and it was me on the screen. So that was fun to hear from friends of mine. But my family always knew when I was going to be on because I would tell them the excitement of, I got a job. So that was neat.
Yeah. So what is your biggest theater role? Like what's your biggest role? Like what's the story behind that?
My biggest role, I think, would be probably biggest roles would be with the Theater of Note, which is a theater that's still running, a theater company that's still running in LA. They have been around for now 40 years, I believe. The Theater of Note is Note is an acronym that stands for New One Act Theater Ensemble, because they started out doing only one act plays and then moved into more than one act plays as they continued forward. With them, I did so many original plays that were very exciting to originate roles in and start, because when you're an actor and you look at a script that has been published by Sam French, you know, you see in there, you can open the front cover and see who played the roles originally. And then as you leaf through, the stage directions are all written down for you and everything. And as an actor, that's kind of limiting in a way, you know, when somebody has already done the role, especially if you can picture that role in your head already, you have an idea of how it's supposed to be, as opposed to doing a new production, a new play completely. There's no preconceived notion of how this person is or how this whole situation goes. So you have freedom to do what you want. It's all open. And that was really exciting. The biggest one that I did with them, I think, is probably called Yellow Flesh, Alabaster Rose. And it is a play about a family, a dysfunctional family, big surprise, right? And how they all grow a little bit and come together a little bit and figure things out together and apart. And that was recently published. So I got a copy and opened that front cover and got to see my name listed in one of the roles as the originator, which was very exciting. So I consider that the biggest role I've done on stage in Yellow Flesh.
What type of, so if you went to IHS, yeah, you talked about going to IHS, like what type of plays did you do back then while in high school?
Well, I went to Lansing High School,
Oh,
right?
Lansing High School. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you said you're from Ithaca. So what type of plays did you do
I
back
went,
then?
yeah, I graduated from Lansing High School. I had
Oh.
attended Ithaca until the middle of 10th grade and
Oh.
then transferred. Yeah, which was tumultuous, but it was really great to go to Lansing. I was concerned to move schools in the middle of a school year. You know, you never know as a kid what that's going to be when you go to a whole new group of people in the middle of, you know, nothing kind of. But my gosh, the Lansing schools, everybody there, so kind, so fabulous. I had such a great experience. So when I got there, I got to see the production that was being performed since I was halfway through the 10th grade, which was at that time Once Upon a Mattress. And I looked up on the stage and thought, wow, these guys are having so much fun. I'm doing that next year. And that was exciting to me. And the following year was Guys and Dolls. And I got to audition, and darned if I didn't land the role of Sarah Brown. It was very exciting for me that I got the lead in my junior year. And my boyfriend was cast as my counterpart, which was great. And my best friend was cast as my friend Adelaide, and another friend of ours, of course, was cast as her counterpart, and it was a fabulous show. And then we did another great show the following year. We did Little Abner, and I got I can't remember who I played in that, but I remember Suava Bjorn, yeah, was the lead. And Lon Welch was the other lead. He was Lil Abner. That was a fun show too. Those were the shows that I did at Lansing. Yeah. And then I was in choir as well, and chorus, and and band and orchestra as well, because I played French horn.
Do you think that much has changed with like LHS musicals over the past 4-ish decades? Like, do you see any major differences? Like,
yeah, the organization behind the production of the musicals has become much more together and more organized, and the production level has been increased year after year after year after year. And that I love seeing and feeling as I see the productions.
Yeah, it is really cool. Like every year when you see the 9-person crew come on stage and introduce themselves and talk about what they do in their tenure, yeah, like that's always, oh yeah, that's always interesting. And I did find it funny once how the sound guy for Bye Bye Birdie, he ended up playing Ed Sullivan. I don't know if you ever saw that from two
Yeah,
years
I
ago.
did.
Oh,
Yeah, that is really funny. Yeah, you know, you got to get in there sometimes, right?
so what made you want to finally like move on from acting and get into your exercise career? Like, what made you want to finally like make the choice to quit that?
I figured that, well, my husband and I, who I've been with since living in, yeah, New York, Chicago, LA, we decided that we were pretty done with living in urban areas. That was number one. And we had Sawyer in 2009. And so I knew that Los Angeles wasn't the place that I wanted to raise a kid, and started to talk to Monroe about that. And he agreed. We both didn't want to be there for the schools and all that. So all I kept thinking was Lansing, because I love upstate New York. It's where I'm from. And I always knew that I would return because it's so beautiful and open, you know, and green. And actually, it's funny. My husband Monroe came to Ithaca to drop off a friend of his to college so many years ago, just after he graduated from high school. So came to Ithaca, to Cornell, to drop off his friend, and thought that this was a beautiful place and that he was going to live here eventually. Just decided that one time, and had never returned until he came back with me. And then we decided we wanted to live here when I said, do you think we could move to Lansing? And he was like, yeah. So that's what we did. And I knew that that would be a good opportunity to further pursue Pilates full time. I've been doing it. I had been doing it part time for since, gee whiz, 2001, and acting and auditioning and all that kind of stuff. And we knew that it was just time to move. The Also, the industry has changed a lot, in that residuals are not as good as we used to get for commercials. An actor used to be able to survive getting 3-4 commercials a year because of residuals and everything, and now that doesn't happen anymore. Your middle class actor is kind of non-existent now because of the lack of residuals for the work that we do. You know, that's so we saw the writing on the wall as far as the lack of reimbursement and possibility of getting a living wage doing acting, and the combo of that and not wanting to live in an urban setting anymore, wanting to be nice and relaxed.
Yeah, what's your opinion on a writer's strike and actors like strike? That was all about residuals. People, they don't really tune into NBC anymore. There's a ton of less people that quit cable for the overuse fees, and a lot like some shows like Breaking Bad and Euphoria were the biggest shows ever on Max and Netflix, and Breaking Bad even got renewed because of it. But like the actors like Aaron Paul or Sydney Sweeney, they got no residuals for many, many years. Like, what's your opinion on that and streaming?
Yeah, I think it's sad that people don't get the reimbursement for their work that is due them. You know, actors, there's this thinking that they get paid too much, but actors are constantly working and not getting paid, actually, because the part of the work is auditioning and constant auditioning. You never get paid for auditions. You only get paid when you book the job. So that's why it's important to actually get paid a little chunk of money and then get your reimbursement. You get reimbursement for every time, supposedly, every time something is shown, because the producers are getting paid every time that piece is shown. And every cable, well, used to be cable, every streaming service does have records when they wish to look for them and or reveal them. They do have records of the streaming for every program that they have, but unfortunately they claim that it is impossible to keep track of that. But I don't understand, because somehow the producers are paid. So if the producers are paid, it seems as though the actors should be paid as well. Yeah. Did I answer the question? I kind of went round and round in that one.
I think you answered the question. Yeah, I think
Okay.
about the importance of residuals and streaming. Like, man, I'm glad they finally got it all figured out like half a year ago. But the thing is, some streaming services like Breaking Bad were on there for 13 years. And like that's 13 years without a residual check. And some shows like Mad Men were on Netflix for like 8 years. They got removed during the pandemic. So that's 8 years of payments lost. Like that's not every actor is like Mark Hamill, where they get like special like payments or special, or Tom Cruise like special thing in their
Right.
contracts.
Right.
So yeah, that
Right.
is
Your average actor, yeah, is not going to get paid for that. And that's quite unfortunate, isn't it? And they can't, the average actor also doesn't have the money to pursue the payment that Aaron Paul does, right? To get reimbursed and and demand that reimbursement, because it's due them. They deserve it.
Are you worried about AI at all and how that can help and make films, like being a small time actor, getting gigs, constantly running around trying the best you can and make a living off of residuals? Are you worried about like AI that could easily copy people and their mannerisms, like in their voices, and even like generate how they think? Are you worried about that replacing like the potential for like Z-list actors that could become A-listers? Or
Yeah, I worry about background actors,
yeah,
they're going to be completely useless if given AI can, pick one person and then multiply them. It's quite unfortunate that we won't be using humans to populate a film, because that's a different feel. It really does have a different feel when there isn't a human on the screen.
I'm shocked. Like they were able to do so much in 1 year, and there's been no legislation about likenesses. Like the guy who played, I don't know if you know this, the guy who played Marty McFly's dad in Back to the Future. He was in the first movie, but he didn't want to return for the second movie due to a pay dispute. So they got somebody who looked exactly like him, dress him up and voice him, but like they never told him, and like he sued them for their likeness, and they had to pay him a ton of money. And since then, you need like approval for likeness, but since AI is generated purely by a computer and nobody is like legally responsible, like that really raises a lot of questions.
It does. It does. I agree with you, Tom.
Yeah.
It's a really, it is a little, it's very unsettling that we have no control over it right now.
So, what is the story about you getting part-time into pilots? Like, what's the origin story for that?
Getting part-time into Pilates.
Pilates, yeah. Oh,
Yes,
whoops.
sorry.
Pilates, yeah. Huh.
Yep. I started because a friend of mine took me to a friend of hers who at the time was a Pilates instructor. And she said, let's go try Pilates. My friend's a Pilates instructor, and I had been reading about it. So I thought, yeah, I want to try it. At the time, my friend, this was in Los Angeles, and my friend was from Chicago. And my friend Siri went back to Chicago, and I stayed with her friend and learned and stayed and trained there. And once I had been doing it for about 5 years, the trainer, very kind woman named Rami, said that, she said, you really have an affinity for this. You're enjoying it so much. What about you getting training? Did you ever think about that? And I hadn't. And I thought, yeah, I'd love it, because it's so much fun. The first time I did it, it made me feel relaxed and energized at the same time. And what's so cool is that I could shut off my brain and just listen to somebody tell me everything, even when to breathe. That was heaven to me. Because I didn't have to think about, now my brain had no room to think about a grocery list or what I had to do later, or anything else. It was just right now. And that's what I love about Pilates as I've continued through it. Really, the main principle is combining and focusing the mind-body connection and getting the breath, the body, and the mind coordinated, and learning how to use your body and functionally, and be safe in all the movements that you do during the day. That is the ultimate goal of Pilates, and that's why I love it.
What's like the most difficult part of Pilates?
The most difficult, well, you mean for people to do in Pilates, or like for teaching Pilates?
For doing Pilates.
For doing Pilates, for people to find, and for myself, is to find neutral spine when needed. It's a challenging position just to find that neutral spine, that relaxed spine. Well, I don't know. Once you find that, it's relaxing. So it's interesting in Pilates. What is most challenging becomes comfortable. You find your center. I don't know. What is most challenging in Pilates? Continuing to move forward in your journey and challenge yourself. Nothing ever becomes easy in Pilates. It becomes better. I don't know.
Was it difficult transitioning to Pilates full time after like doing it for like a decade? Like, was that hard at all, moving across the country, doing something, making this your full-time job?
Yeah, any moving is always a big trauma to the psyche, right? But moving here after being away for so long was challenging, because it's always challenging to establish yourself in a new place. So that took about a year to actually find my current job. And that was pounding the pavement. Basically, I went around to various places in Ithaca to find the studio where I am right now. And in my circuitous route, somebody recommended that I go to the Pilates room. And once I heard that name, I thought, that is where I want to be. I don't know why. I just knew that was where I needed to be. So I went there and gave them my resume, and I didn't hear from them for a very long time, because it turned out the woman who called me, one of the owners, had lost my number for a few months, and then she had been looking for it and finally found it and called me. So it was like 4 or 5 months since I had been there. Meanwhile, my husband is saying, aren't you going to get a job? I mean, they haven't called you yet. Don't you want to work somewhere else? And I said, no, this is where I want to be. So I'm waiting for them to call me. Sure enough, they called me eventually. I knew it would happen. And I started working there in 2014. And I've been there for 10 years now.
Yeah. Do you think there's any stigma towards like older women in the exercise like industry when it comes to like, bodybuilding?
Oh yeah, probably, but luckily in Pilates, the longer you've been at it, generally the better you are at the exercise. So with Pilates, you get to continue to gain strength, and you're a wise elder as opposed to a useless old person. How's that?
So
And well, I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
so there's not too much ageism or sexism. There's not much of that.
Not much in the Pilates realm. As far as, I also teach some bar classes, which are more cardio based. And the thinking there is that, a young person is going to be teaching these classes so that you can move quickly and get into the burn and all that kind of stuff. And I do teach a couple of bar classes, and I do like getting into the burn. And sometimes it does surprise the young people who come into class who collapse way before me and my other 50-year-old clients, because we've been at it for a while. It's fun for us to see the 20-year-olds, go, how you doing? Okay, yeah. And yeah, just to let them know that it's still, we can get better as we get older.
Like, how long did it take for you to see results from exercising with the Pilates? Like, how long did it take till you got those gains?
Let's see. You start to see differences in your body within 4 to 6 weeks when you're doing a regular exercise regime. But I got to say, right now, because of the years that I have under my belt, I feel like at 57, I'm the strongest I've ever been in my life. I can finally do pull-ups. Granted, it's like 2.5 at the most, but it's pull-ups. And I can do full push-ups for the first time in my life, so it's great. You just keep moving forward. It's always challenging, and it always feels good when you're done. No, always feels good when you're doing it.
Now, is the majority of Pilates clients, are they like on more in a, are they like mostly women, or are they mostly like men? Like, what is the demographic?
The demographic is usually women. I think, yeah, but we do have a lot of men who come into the studio too. It's generally, the classes are majority women. Yeah, still, but the men who come also benefit greatly. They're rock stars.
So does it feel cool at all being like in better shape, like being a peak of your shape, like than a lot of people your age? Like some people your age are thinking about like retiring, or they are retired while you're at like your peak right now. How does that feel?
It feels really good. It feels really positive, and I like to show people, and tell them I'm 57 and I'm feeling good. And I hope that that's inspiring. If I could do it, anybody can. Seriously, it's any human can.
So do you have I know you've had such a big career change. Like, do you have any advice for like people, like young adults, people trying to figure out what to do to their life, like trying to find a career? Like, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah. Well, I don't feel like I am the most intelligent person. Where did you go? I lost you because I.
Oh yeah, I have less than a minute left for the pros, so
Okay. But follow your heart. um, the money will come. Yeah, I feel like I found my path through both acting and Pilates, because I have a really big science brain. I followed that, and that helps me with Pilates. The artistic brain took me in the acting direction. Yeah, believe in yourself. Listen to yourself.
well, anyways,
Listen
thanks
to
for
your gut.
talking. It was great having
Don't
you on here.
settle. There it
Don't
is.
settle.